Welcome to Fitness for the Rest of Us, the podcast that travels the back alleys and side roads of the fitness world and examines the way exercise intersects with mental health, personal development, culture, and more.
I'm Jessica Callis. I'm a social worker, peer supporter, power lifter, and nap time advocate.
I'm Peter McQueen. I'm a personal trainer, a writer, and a lifelong student of the obscure corners of life.
If you've ever felt like an outsider in fitness culture, this is the place for you. We're here to celebrate all body types and fitness levels, helping you find what works for you. No pressure, just progress.
All right. Good morning. Is it morning? It's still morning? Yeah, it's still morning. At least here. I guess it's lunchtime in your time zone.
It's afternoon now. Yeah, I know you and I always forget about the hour time.
Oh my gosh. I know, and it's just 1 hour. Like if it were 6 hours or something like that, I feel like I'd have a better time remembering, but it's just like, yeah.
Yeah, so minimal.
Yep. So we are having a bit of a lazy recording day today. We decided to take it easy. I had some fun. I installed a little work light up there above me so that I can actually be visible here in this kind of dark corner of my house. And today we're going to talk about enhancements, which is a kind of a broad category. We're just bringing together a bunch of topics kind of under that umbrella. And long term, I think that each one of these could theoretically expand into its own episode with some kind of prompts and questions and some, viewer listener feedback, hopefully. But for now, yeah, I mean, we just want to kind of talk about everything that we kind of hear about sometimes is like cheating. But before we do that, I have kind of two things. I have one serious thing I want to do and one kind of fun thing I want to do. So first, I just wanted to kind of give us like a quick state of the pod and see if you kind of feel like I feel like we're finding our rhythm here, but we are still in the process of finding it, right? Like there's these beginning segments, I feel like we've had some that have come really good and some that are, it takes us a minute to get going. And I kind of jumped right into this one on purpose for that reason.
Yeah, for sure.
But also I kind of like how the structure has kind of come. Cause like our first two episodes, it's food and exercise. And like, those are the two of the most universal things we have there. And then the third one, like the food and exercise are things that like contain both struggles and victories,
Right.
And then our last episode, we talked about more like things that people struggle with, what I mean? And now we're kind of doing the opposite of that in a way. Like we're trying to talk about things that, help people take themselves to the next level, whether it's in training whether it's in just general self-improvement and stuff like that. So I just kind of love how this is shaping up right now. And even though we're still sanding off some rough edges, like I just wanted to take a moment to appreciate that, I guess.
Yes, absolutely. And I think along with improvement, you and I are very verbose people. I think it comes from our family, strong Greek background. And I always tell people in my family, the loudest person is the one who gets heard. Like there could be 5 people talking, but if you're louder, then everyone's listening to you.
And sometimes you have to get good at listening to like 2 conversations at once. Like,
oh yeah, exactly.
All the time.
And so I feel like you and I have that style of communication just inherently. And so the back and forth and the interview based, we're getting better at that instead of just talking over each other.
Exactly. Yeah. But it's definitely, it's, and so we want to preserve a lot of that voice because I like the way I converse, I like the way you converse. And, but yeah, like, there's a happy medium that we're moving in the direction of, I think. So
absolutely. And we'd love listener feedback on that. Do you prefer that we're just loud and gregarious, or is that too?
Yes, definitely. And I kind of touched on that last time, especially with me, like people check me. If you feel like, hey, you know what, you kind of missed the point there. Like, I want to know about that.
Right.
So, all right. So the thing I wanted to ask you today to kind of really get us going is if you could have any superpower, what superpower would you have? Just get one.
And so many people ask this like as a corporate icebreaker and things like that.
Yeah.
I really think I would want to be able to fly.
Fly?
I want to fly. I want to be able to go wherever I want to go. Part of that might be avoidance, tactic is to get out of whatever I want to get out of. But at the same time, I love seeing new environments. I love meeting new people. And so I just feel like that would be
cool, just to be able to go wherever you want to go.
Yeah. What about you?
So I have always thought, ever since I was a kid, I would want to have the ability to stop time whenever I wanted. because it would make you the best prankster in the entire world. And I don't know, have you ever watched Bluey? You're aware of Bluey at all?
I am aware, but I do not have children, so I
Yeah,
do
you
not
don't have
watch
kids,
it.
so yeah, I know. Well, I'll tell you, it is absolutely as enjoyable for adults, and I know more than one adult that watches it who doesn't have kids, just watches it for their
Nice.
own enjoyment. But there's a like the first episode of Bluey, they have a magic xylophone, and then when they play the right notes, their dad will like freeze right where he is, and they'll do stuff like stick his finger in his nose or like pull his
Nice.
pants halfway down or something. He
Right.
doesn't have pants, but you know what I mean, like silly stuff like that. And my kids and me, we play that game just with their magic freeze powers. But being able to actually do that to people, and like you were saying, flying out of a situation, and I was thinking about there was this one time I was in a cigar store and I was buying a cigar and I was talking to this guy and he was, we were talking about where we're from. And I was like, oh yeah, I grew up in the Kansas City area. And he's like, oh yeah, what part? And I was like, oh, Overland Park. And he said, oh yeah, I used to live just across the state line there. It was a real nice area until the blacks moved in.
Oh
And
God.
at that point, I was like, if I could have just stopped time
Yep.
and like shaved that guy's entire head and like pulled his pants down and then like left, that would
Yeah,
have been amazing,
that would
you
be
know?
amazing. Yeah. I'm
So
picturing, so the second you said that, I pictured the first series finale of Futurama, where
yeah.
Fry and Leela stop time and like have their entire lives
Oh
together,
yeah.
and then
Oh,
they're like,
that
oh,
show.
let's unfreeze time and go back and do it again.
Oh, yeah. That's that show. Like it was such a goofy show, so funny and irreverent. Then every now and then they just like hit you right in the feels, like that one, and the one with the dog. Do you remember the one with the dog?
Jurassic Park, I skip it
Dude,
every time.
just mind numbing. Yeah.
I can't do it.
Yeah. All right. So we're talking about enhancements. We're talking about whatever the closest things we have to superpowers here in this life, and we got a lot of good stuff coming up.
Before we get started, if you enjoy the show, please remember to like, rate, subscribe, and leave a review on your podcast app of choice. It really does help us out. If you're watching this on YouTube, go ahead and drop a comment below. Also, remember to like, follow, and interact with us on social media. All of our links are in the show notes. If you want to support the show, please consider donating or becoming a member on our Ko-fi page. Members get special bonus episodes, video content, and whatever other goodies we can cook up.
The trigger warning for today's episode is that we will be talking about eating, nutrition, and drug use, both legal and illegal. If you feel like you need assistance with any of these things, please go to nationaleatingdisorders.org or NAMI.org for mental health support.
Oh, okay. Big hug. All right, big hug.
Aw.
Aw.
We'll leave that in.
Yeah, we'll leave that in for sure. Yes.
Thank you. Do you see I got my Tekanina shirt on today?
Nice. Very good.
Yes. All right. Enhancements.
So we got so many different areas, but the way ChatGPT rearranged, and I can't remember what's first on your outline, but let's talk about loose skin, because this is actually something that I have been spending some time on. I'm putting together a little ebook that hopefully by the time this episode drops will be out and available for free. Just about, because it's the number one question that I get asked by any clients I have that have weight loss on their radar, either in the recent past or as like part of what we're doing together, is what do we do with this loose skin? So why don't you talk a little bit about what you got going on?
Yeah, so I have lost 120 pounds total.
I didn't know it was
My
that many.
highest weight ever was 290 pounds, and today my weight is 167. I know, I'm excited. So I would say maybe at like the 80 or 90 pounds loss mark, I started noticing loose skin. It might have happened before, but that's when it really started to be a struggle for me.
Sure.
And by struggle, I mean it gets in the way. It gets in the way of trying to fit into machines. My loose skin around my abdomen makes it difficult to place a weightlifting belt properly when doing deadlifts, especially.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like I actually have gone to several doctors because of some acute abdominal pain, and they say there's no way to get rid of it. Like, you have loose skin, it has lost its elasticity and will not bounce back. So
No.
there's a certain point where no matter how dialed in your nutrition is, no matter what kind of any kind of exercise you're doing, whether it's cardio, weightlifting, etc., no amount of cool sculpting or any other kind of, program like treatment like that is gonna
Yep.
help. So
And that's been my TLDR, and that's the reason I'm writing the book, is to kind of let people witness the journey to that TLDR of the, like, unfortunately, yeah, like, if you lose a large amount, really, even at a healthy pace, once we're talking north of 60, 70 pounds, like, and if it's no more than 60, 70 pounds, because that's about kind of where I am, in terms of how much turnover I've ever had in my body composition, like, it may be to that point where, like, okay, it's inconvenient, but it isn't like a real, like, clinical problem. So loose skin, yeah, that's the TLDR. Like, there's not a whole ton we could do. So you've got a surgery coming up. Tell me
I
about that.
do.
Tell
Okay,
me all about
so part of losing a large amount of weight is actually, and plastic surgeon told me this, I am not a medical doctor, but basically, your abdominal muscles overlap. And the issue is when you carry a lot of extra weight for a long period of time, your abdominal muscles try to find a way to support that weight. And so it actually starts to stretch your abdominal muscles out and they disconnect from each other.
So we're
So
talking about the
after,
linea alba stretching, that big tendon that runs down the middle of your body. Yes. Okay.
yeah. And so it depends on how long you carry the extra weight. And I did carry it for about, I don't know, 10, 12 years.
Mhm.
So that's the issue. They cannot, for me, for my acute abdominal pain that's been disrupting my daily life for about a year now,
Mhm.
they're saying that could be an abdominal wall dysfunction because I have lost so
Mhm.
much weight, because I carried the weight for so long, and
Mhm.
because they can't find anything with my intestines or anything that's
I
wrong.
didn't realize that was part of this. So, like, is there going to be some, like, exploratory stuff happening while they're in there? Like,
Yes, so that's why I chose to do this
oh,
now instead of waiting. Because if it was, just the skin, it's like, well, that can wait. It's uncomfortable, but it can wait. But
right.
so that was basically what I was told was my option, was to
Mm.
either continue to get injections in my abdominal wall because they thought maybe there's a nerve that's pinched because of the weight loss, and so they were going to do nerve blocker injections. But
Mhm.
my pain doctor said, if you can get it fixed, then get it fixed first, and then we can try a
Yeah.
nerve blocker if that's the case.
Yeah.
So the plan,
Mm.
if you get an abdominoplasty, what
Mhm.
that includes is abdominal wall repair, any kind of excess fat removal, and then the removal of loose skin and the tightening of loose skin.
Let me ask about that too. Now, do they just is an abdominoplasty like a congratulations, you lost a significant amount of weight and we're going to clean everything up and, like, sew up all the loose ends for you? Is it
Basically.
everything, or is it just a couple of spots?
So that's a great question, and she did answer that for me. Um, my rib cage expanded because I was also carrying a lot of weight for a long time, and so my rib cage expanded from, its usual shape to again carry the extra weight.
Yeah, mine's
And
the same
so
way.
yeah. So she's essentially going from my rib cage all the way down to my hips and is going to just kind of, like you said, pull everything in, tighten it up, tighten the skin.
And so it's not
Um,
even like a standard, like, battery of things. Like, it's just wherever you need moving. Like, she's going to get in there and do it. Wow, that's cool. I didn't know it
yeah,
was like that custom made.
it is. In fact,
That's
she said
amazing.
that for me, because I have loose skin that goes around to the back of my like hip socket, that the cut that the incision she'll make is actually going to be larger. It's going to come around towards my back, whereas most people, it almost looks like a C-section scar.
Interesting. Wow.
So
And see, I've always thought about that too. I was joking with my boss the other day about how my loose skin is such that when I do, like, a front double bicep, it almost looks like I have pretty big lats
yeah,
because my lats, like that extra skin kind of hangs down there. And I was like, yeah, but if I do it one side and kind of bat it around, like
Yeah.
there's nothing in there. And he had a good laugh at that. And it was all very good natured and everything. And, but yeah, I mean, if you told me like, yeah, we could clean all that up and get that looking like it might have even 60% of what it might have looked like if I had never gotten to the size that I did, like I didn't know that there was that much hope, honestly. So that's
Yeah,
really
and so, that's just with an abdominoplasty. They can remove loose skin from anywhere.
cool.
So, like, I've got a lot of hang down here. Like, this is
He
all
does.
skin right here. So they can go in and just make a line and cut all that off. The part that's really the loose skin that is bothering me the most is on the inside of my thighs because
Sure.
it
Yes.
rubs together. It
I
causes
know.
rashes.
Okay, so TMI, but like I wear boxer briefs for that reason,
Yeah.
and I go through them really quick for that reason.
Yeah.
Like that's the part that frays and like wears out first. So
Yeah. So
yeah,
there are
that's really cool.
typically two reasons that loose skin removal will be covered by insurance, and one is a documented medical history of any kind of skin rash or any kind of skin infection you get because the loose skin is in the way.
Yeah, yeah.
So, yeah.
And I've been wanting to explore that for a while, but I also have kind of always been waiting to figure out where I am able to maintain. You know what I mean? Because like it's not something I want to have to do twice. And I know that my thinnest, healthiest weight probably is not my most easily maintainable weight.
Mhm.
And so it's just like a question of like, when is the right time to pull that ripcord? When have I settled into good enough habits that I feel like, okay, I can actually live in this body? But I wanted to jump into this topic first because with ChatGPT's help, it frames kind of this entire discussion in an interesting way. In that, when we talk about enhancements and when we talk about the division between medicine and supplementation, or whether surgery is acceptable or everything must be accomplished by exercise. We are talking about the difference between uh, earning a certain body and choosing to live in a certain body. Whether that means changing your body or just choosing to adopt a mental framework that allows you to be more comfortable in the body that you're already in.
Mhm.
And I feel like there is, a lot of people who feel like everything must be earned,
Mhm.
and must be earned not just in any old way, but, earned in the hardest possible way of,
Yep.
just diet and exercise and willpower and nothing else. And the funniest thing to me is how many of the people who push that view, especially in gym culture, because that's where I encounter it, are in fact cheating
Yeah.
by their own standards,
Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
And so, like, the next thing I kind of wanted to move on to, the next area is the push and pull between GLP-1s and/or anabolic steroids. You have been using, remind me, is it Manjaro or?
So I started with Manjaro, and then as soon as Zepbound came on the market, I switched to that. Manjaro is meant to treat type 2 diabetes. And then they did some more research and released Zepbound, which is the same chemical compound. It's just that drug is approved only for weight loss, whereas Manjaro is approved for type 2 diabetes treatment, and weight loss happens to be a side effect.
Is there like a dosage or formulation difference, or is it just purely a different approval process?
Just purely different approval. That's how the FDA works. Is it's
That
under
makes
a
sense.
different name, so it gets to be approved for a different reason. It is so even though they say that though, I noticed a difference in side effects. I was much more nauseous, much more dizzy. Had a lot worse GI symptoms on Manjaro than I have. Like Zepbound has really just been I'm dizzy on shot day, and everything else has been fine.
Interesting. Yeah, and I was going to ask about side effects, of course, too, because there is some, I think, from certain corners of physical culture, there is some legitimate concern about, these are in fact new medicines,
Mm-hmm.
and while I do feel that we have a really pretty solid base of research on all these, you know, it can be wise to say, okay, we've got a lot of excitement driving the development here. Like, it's good to have some caution in the mix too.
Yes.
So there is a voice of reason coming from physical culture about that. But we also, I mean, the longest term studies that we're showing, from everything I've heard, and I admittedly have only done, a modicum of research on this, is that the biggest long term negative consequence is that some people basically need to be on them for life,
Right.
because the risk of relapse coming off of them is just too great. But as far as I know, nobody's like getting cancer from it or anything crazy like that. Have you heard of
Yeah.
any like long term things or?
So really the biggest long-term concern is that because it does slow down your digestive system.
Mhm.
Those are kind of the two ways that the two
It,
ways that
it
tourism
delays
cascade.
gastric emptying through some kind of
Yes, it
hormone
delays
cascade.
gastric emptying so you feel fuller longer, and then it quiets the food noise. Those are kind of the two ways, and we can talk about food noise. And so there is a concern for gastroparesis, or the paralysis of your GI system, that it
So like
can kind of,
blockages long term.
yeah, so people who are kind of more genetically susceptible to gastroparesis, it can kind of be a trigger for that.
Sure. What about uh oh my gosh, is it ulcerative colitis? What's the one where you get like the little nodes in your GI tract that, like, I forget what it is.
So ulcerative colitis is more like ulcers in your GI
Yeah,
system.
that wasn't the right one.
I think you're talking about Crohn's, maybe?
I can't remember. Whatever.
I don't
You know
know.
what? Maybe we should leave that to people who have more education in that area to talk about the specifics. But really,
Yeah.
hey, this is fitness for the rest of us. For the rest of us, the takeaway that we've gotten is that the news is pretty much all good.
Hmm.
There's caution is warranted, but the news is mostly good, and most of the concerns can be managed and somewhat soothed by the data that we do have.
Yeah.
But the funny thing is when it comes to traditional PEDs, what we think of as like doping in sports, um, those things have been around a lot longer, and obviously their efficacy has been extremely well established, which is why that they're worthy of being banned in certain sports. But
Hmm.
also the risk profiles are extraordinarily well documented,
Yep.
and really beyond any kind of speculation. I mean, if you get synthetic anabolic compounds like testosterone and stuff like that, your body will stop producing them over
Yeah.
time and will not bounce back from that. And like, it's a
Right.
lifelong commitment, and the absence of it is misery, and even the presence of it becomes misery,
Yep.
depending on how. And so, like, it's very funny to me that and I'm thinking of specific people who I will not name, of course, but who will really make very sharp moral judgments against people for using GLP-1s in order to graduate into the bodies that they've wanted and deserved their entire
Hmm.
lives but couldn't get for whatever reason. And yet
Right.
these very same people are reaching or killing themselves to reach for a body that they were never supposed to have.
Right.
The body
Exactly.
that their genetics are fighting tooth and nail to prevent them from having.
Yep.
And it's killing them to do it.
Yeah.
That's fine morally,
Yeah.
apparently.
Exactly.
That
Yeah.
blows
And
me
like you
away.
said, harming them, and it harms you not only physiologically, but emotionally too.
Yes, so much emotional.
Yeah.
It's,
Yeah.
I mean, it destroys. It can destroy relationships. I've seen what roid rage looks like. And roid rage is not the only thing. That's the kind of the stereotypical one. But there's also anxiety and paranoia and depression, and depending on how your cycle goes, what kind of stack you're running and what other compounds you're putting in them. There's tons of psychological side effects that people
Does
get.
it hurt your sleep?
Oh yes. So I will tell you this: it's not so much that anabolics. At least I am not aware of a way in which anabolics directly affect your sleep.
Mhm.
However, the way that your metabolism changes when you are at super physiological levels of anabolism And then especially as you start to get lean and lose fat and start to miss out on some of the hormone regulation stuff that happens in your fat cells. Yeah. I mean, bodybuilders who are towards, in the last 6-8 weeks of prep are sleeping 3-4 hours a night if they're lucky, and yet are jittery all the time. And even in the absence of stimulants, which a lot of them are on stimulants at that point too, especially pre-workouts and stuff like that. Yeah. Anyway, so it's all tremendously unhealthy and affects so many different areas of your life. But my thing is the place where I kind of maybe head off in an unexpected direction is in the right context, I do not have any like moral judgments against any of that stuff. I mean, my belief that people have a right to do what they want with their bodies goes both ways. I think people have a right to choose to live in a body that they accomplished through financial means rather than years of exercise, if that is within their means, and if that is going to lead to a happier, healthier mind, then I think that's good. I do think that there are some people who do it just for vanity, and I do think that that's probably problematic, but also it's not my problem. You know what I mean? And if I'm ever close to somebody like that, to the point where they actually value my opinion on that subject, I would express it. But anyone else, it's their body, it's their life. They do what they want. I don't hate them for it. You know what I mean? Even if I have my own private feelings about that as a practice, I don't judge the person,
Right. And I think that's fair as long as they're not hurting anyone else.
Yeah, exactly. And that's how I feel about the whole bodybuilder thing. Like I mean, it's dangerous and unhealthy, but so is running ultra marathons, really, if you think about it. So is climbing Mount Everest and going to the moon and all these other things. People are rather in the habit of doing dangerous and difficult things.
Exactly.
And we tend to cheer each other on most of the time when we do these things. And so I like bodybuilding for that. It's the Mount Everest of weight loss, essentially. Like to have the most aesthetically perfect or the most extremely compartmentalized weight loss possible. It's pushing human physiology in a really interesting way. And the fact that there are people who are willing to make those sacrifices so that people like me who can spectate, I mean, granted, it's not that popular of a sport, but yeah, I'm glad it exists. And we learn stuff from those extreme endeavors that humans go on. Like we learn things about nature by people who want to climb to places that no human has ever been and stuff like that. So,
and we learn the physical and mental limits of humans and how far we can go. And
honestly, we were talking before the show about orthorexia. Orthorexia wouldn't even be a thing that I think we are discussing. It's not in the DSM yet, but I feel like there's a pathway for it to become part of the DSM eventually. And the fact that that's even a term that we have, I feel like we owe bodybuilding in a way for that. Like we've had a lot of people who have, I mean, in a way, it's a bit of a canary in a coal mine sort of situation that people have accidentally sacrificed themselves so we can learn that something is hazardous.
Right.
But at the same time, now we know that, and then there's whole wings of like natural bodybuilding who are able to, I mean, they are not able to accomplish the same things, but they are able to accomplish them in more recoverable ways. It's still unhealthy for sure, but ways that people are able to come back from, you know, and go back to living healthy lives afterwards. And that's pretty cool. And that natural bodybuilding we never could have had without supplemented enhanced bodybuilding.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And I think I just want to go back to a point that you made about like sleep interruption and people being down on GLP-1s. As the research continues with GLP-1s, one thing it's about to be approved to treat is sleep apnea. So you keep hearing people saying GLP-1 is cheating, people are on steroids forever. Some people think that's cheating, some people don't.
Right.
But that's why I lean more towards GLP-1 as an enhancement for myself, is because it helps with that. It also is a good new treatment for PCOS. Like it just keeps coming out with all these other things that it helps with. Whereas steroids,
it shows you though too, like, because I'm guessing that a lot of the reason that it helps with that kind of stuff is, because the hormonal changes that come with carrying a lot of weight, or just even the process of putting on the weight, Like so much is tied to your weight. And it's not as simple as like, oh, well, you're fat, so you're unhealthy. Like it's not as cut and dried as that. Although there's some like mechanical limitations, like, when we're talking about skin and stuff, having, just too much body tissue in certain places can be, limit your mobility. And then there's like, it can affect your skin health and all that stuff. So like the idea of using what is not, essentially a weight loss drug to nominally treat these other conditions, I think demonstrates how connected our weight health is to everything else. But then also just shows that diagnostics, there's a lot of overlap. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of, it's a mental framework. It's a cognitive framework, diagnostics. And, we have human problems and we have solutions. And it's just diagnostics is just the little filtering system that we figure out how to connect those 2 points. I feel like there's not as many absolutes in there as people think.
There aren't. And, one thing I remember from my clinical education is talking about symptomology and diagnosis as a flower. And so often we're looking at the petals of the flower, anxiety, depression, PCOS, sleep apnea. Those are symptoms or behaviors. And you have to go down along the stem and down into the root. And so often we confuse the petals with the root of the issue. And that's why diagnosis, no matter what, mental health, substance use, physiology, it is an art form. And that frustrates a lot of people.
For sure. No, and I know that because that's something I've been frustrated by before when I've had, a problem, and because I'm the patient, I frame the problem in terms of the symptoms, right? That's the only way I know how to grapple with it. And so like, we'll go to a doctor and it has just driven me crazy that like, we can't figure out what this is. So we can't figure out, what to treat it with, because I, as an undereducated person in that area, kind of thought that it's more mechanical than it really is, that there's like we just need to figure out what size bolt this is, and then we can grab the right wrench and we can turn it, you know what I mean? But that's not at all how medicine works at all. And there's a lot of stuff in there where we have the problem and we have the solution, and we know that the one goes to the other, but we're not exactly sure what happens in between. You know what I mean? We know that this fixes that, but we're not 100% sure why. We just have good guesses. And unless I'm mistaken, there's some elements of GLP-1s that fall into that category that we're not exactly. I don't really look again. My research is not complete there, and perhaps one of these days we'll be podcasters who do have complete research before we hit the record button. But for now, either way,
but it's true. We don't know why. Because we're looking at, so the difference between Zepbound and Ozempic is Zepbound has a GLP-1 and a GLP-1 antagonist, whereas Ozempic is just a GLP-1. And so, they're seeing better results and more kind of disorders, symptoms that Zepbound can treat because it has both of those. And like you said, I don't really know the difference between the GLP-1 and the antagonist. And, I think there's a lot of research out there on it. But
hold on. Do you know what GLP stands for? Do you right now?
I can.
Yeah, let's look that up right now.
So GLP, glucagon-like peptide.
Glucagon-like peptide. Okay. Or glucagon. Is it glucagon-like peptide?
Yeah, sorry. Glucagon-like peptide.
That's what I know. So we've talked about surgery. We've talked about weight loss drugs. We've talked about steroids a little bit. I want to kind of stick in that general zone and talk about two things that are maybe a little bit less extreme. Like, let's talk about supplements and like nutrition support. And then I also want to talk a little bit about kind of tie it back to surgery and talk about implants and stuff like that. So nutrition, like that's one thing that I definitely encounter in my job is where that line is, figuring out where that line is between a supplement and then like something that's more of a PED, right? Mm-hmm. And like typically the law is pretty clear on helping you find that line. If you could buy it in a store, it's probably fine. Although there's still plenty of risky stuff in there. Mm-hmm. And I think it's interesting because I guess the risk profile is really the differentiator for sure. I mean, there are still some very high risk things that you can get without a prescription, obviously, in terms of stimulants and stuff, especially because they're always coming out with new ones. Anytime the government gets their act together and makes something like ephedra illegal, well, then they figure out how to make ephedra sulfate or ephedra, uh,
Exactly.
penicillin salts or whatever the heck it is. Like they figure out some, they add one extra
Loophole.
chemical step so that we still get the effect, but technically it evades the law.
Yeah.
And that's just like the same process that's been going on between the law and
Forever.
and criminals since the beginning of time. One guy brings a stick, the other guy brings a knife, the other guy
Yep.
brings a gun, et cetera. So
Exactly.
and so like that process will never end, and people are pretty much always going to find ways to do what they want to do. And having had the journey that I had, the luckily relatively merciful journey I had through like illegal drug culture, like I really feel like things like steroids, I feel, and things like nutrition supplements, I feel like harm reduction is the way to go rather than legalization with things
Yeah.
like this. And so,
Yeah.
the trouble with supplements is there's so many of them out there, and it's such a wild west of unregulated stuff. And even a really buffed up FDA would struggle to keep pace with free market capitalism.
Also, I
And
just want to do an aside here that the
yeah,
FDA approval process is awful.
it's monstrous. Yeah,
It's
for sure.
it, not only monstrous, but actually really harmful.
Mm.
There are a lot of different loopholes, especially if you look at, this is off topic, but medical implants, they don't
Mhm.
actually need any research. You just
Really.
blueprint of
Interesting.
how you insert it, and that's
And so that's not off topic at all, really, because it does point to why. So a lot of how we framed this discussion so far is like we don't make moral judgments against certain kinds of enhancements, especially ones that lead to a greater quality of life. However, like mixed in there, like that voice of caution is warranted because there is a lot of types of things that fall under that umbrella term of enhancements that are dangerous and are exploitative and even like can feed bad like mentalities and cultural threads and stuff like that. And I feel like and I have some cognitive dissonance when it comes to things like breast and butt implants that I see, because I'm a married man, but I'm still a man, and I like the way that female human beings are put together and everything, and so I can make aesthetic appraisals, and sometimes I see someone who's clearly had work done, but I'm like, you know what, I ain't mad at it, like that they look great, and my wife will one day listen to these, and I'm doing this, of course, in a very respectful and professional manner. But no, but I notice these things, but then you see other people
that's
who
what
are like the
they're meant
plastic
for,
surgery
is to be
nightmares.
noticed.
Yeah, exactly. And but you see also other people who like there's one person that I see regularly at my gym who has gone through some weight loss, but clearly had some implants before the weight loss began. And what was the right size then doesn't really look like the right size now.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like she probably has some psychological, like self-image associations with having certain measurements in certain places. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so but I always too wonder like what physical discomforts come with that, because there have to be some if you have boob implants that are a little bit larger than your body is really meant to have, and there's going to be, I know that they probably aren't as weighty as actual breast tissue and everything like
They
that, or
are.
maybe they're more. I don't really
No,
know.
they actually, because they're meant to be so real, they're saline implants. So you've
Right.
got, there's a certain number of pounds per cup size, and
Mhm.
it's basically the same. And so you're absolutely on the right track that if your implant is bigger than your body was meant to have, you're going to
Mhm.
have all the same back pain, all the same posture issues, anything that some posture issues can cause nerve damage.
Oh,
So
sure. Yeah, I
there's
mean, I know that because that's a huge part of the kind of like subclinical problems that I see in older populations as a trainer is that, posture is a habit and it's partially genetic, but like, yeah, years and years of bad posture eventually can manifest into, genuine like clinical things, even though the original problem probably was something very minor. Yeah. And so, yeah, I mean, you kind of put yourself in those situations, and again, those are risks that people certainly have a right to take if that's what they want.
Right.
But I feel like I'm not crazy for having concerns about their well-being when they make some of those choices. And so,
Because you also have to consider body dysmorphia, which is very real. And I am having body dysmorphia right now. I am in a much smaller body than I once was. And until I see pictures of myself, I don't realize what I look like.
sure. No, it can be very hard. Let's talk. Let's circle back a little bit to nutrition stuff. So, like, what supplements do you take? Because I'll talk about what I take. What do you take right now?
So I am very hesitant to take supplements because I am on so many prescription medications. Um, and I'm on heavy duty prescription medications. I take Lamictal, I take Trazodone, I take Cymbalta,
Mhm.
and I take Xanax, PRN, and then I'm on my GLP-1. There
Gotcha.
are a lot of
A lot of
ways that
interactions.
supplements can impact your brain. And so I do not take supplements at all. If I were to take a supplement, I would probably only take which creatine is it that's
Monohydrate.
monohydrate. That would be if I did take one, I would take that.
What
But
about like a multi or fish oil or some of those really like garden variety type things? You take any of
so
that?
I do not, and the reason I don't is because um my micronutrient levels when I get my blood tested, which I will do frequently. I'll ask to do this whole big panel,
Mhm.
kind of like a functional health panel.
Yeah,
Fine. The only time I end up taking one is when my vitamin D levels get low. I have chronic low vitamin D, and so I will take that. I do. I'm sometimes anemic, sometimes not, and so I'll take an iron supplement temporarily if I show anemic on my blood work.
sure.
But I really only take things like that if my micronutrient profile
So
shows.
like to kind of shore up some short term. Yeah,
Yeah,
that
yeah,
makes sense. Yeah. So I definitely am on the conservative side too when it comes to supplements. I tend to be a late adopter. I tend to have a very skeptical view about anything that gets a lot of press, right? When if it's brand new and getting a lot of attention at the same time, I'm immediately red flags all the way
yeah,
down.
yeah.
And so I've learned about how third party testing works and all that stuff. And I've just by being involved in physical culture and gym culture, I've learned a lot about how the supplement industry works, and where their legal loopholes are and what to look out for. And generally, like you could be if people have been taking something, if people who are like bodybuilders or pro athletes have been taking something or doing a practice for more than 10 years, then like you can at least be reasonably assured it's not going to kill you. But even if it does provide a benefit, virtually every supplement on the market is going to give you an extra 2 to 5% of whatever
Yep.
results you know what I mean. And
Hmm.
so like that can be the exact edge you need in a pro bodybuilding contest or out on an NFL football field. Like
Hmm.
that's where you're dealing in those razor thin margins, right?
Yep.
And so so things like that are trendy, like say cold plunges are a big trendy thing right now. And of course,
Yeah.
a lot of people don't actually do real cold plunges. They just take cold showers and think that's the same thing. It's not.
Right.
But like stuff that makes sense, cold immersion makes sense for athletes because if you are, say, a Major League Baseball player, a pitcher per se,
Oh,
and
yeah.
have a shoulder that is getting the type, even if it's a healthy shoulder, getting the type of wear and tear you get from doing a task like that.
Yep.
And you're also playing, what is it in baseball, like 140 games a year, some
Oh, so
crazy amount, like
many.
yeah. And you're playing day in, day out. Like that guy needs the cold immersion just to reduce the inflammation enough so he can get back out on the field.
Right.
But those of us who are just working out 3 or 4 times a week, actually something like cold immersion, it blunts those very same inflammatory processes that actually lead to hypertrophy in the first place.
Hmm.
And so people aren't doing their research on things like that. And so like that's a practice that is viewed kind of as an enhancement. It's not a supplement in itself, but that same logic applies to supplements.
Right.
That like this is something that is useful in a very specific use case or
Hmm.
dials in a razor thin margin for people who need that razor thin margin.
Right.
And because those of us who are just like recreational exercisers look up to those athletes, look up to those figures. Like, we want to emulate them. And so a lot of people, people think Joe Rogan is jacked and looks cool and he plays with kettlebells and all that stuff. And like, that's all cool. So we're going to take Shilajit and all this other random crap that Joe Rogan pushes.
Because he takes it.
And so like, and 99% of it, even the stuff that does everything that it says it will do, that everything, when you really look at it in a broader context, is a little
Much.
bit.
Yeah.
It's a little sprinkle of something extra.
Yeah.
And so, and considering how expensive some of the things are that people buy into, like, almost never is it truly worth it. And for a lot of people, multivitamins are actually kind of one of those things. The only difference is that multivitamins are actually just not that expensive. Like, yes, I take a daily multivitamin. Do I pee most of it out? Probably. I probably do, because I eat a relatively healthy diet. My nutrient levels are good. I'm probably a little low on iron because, I do leafy greens and stuff like broccoli that I know has iron and stuff. I probably don't get quite enough. And I don't really eat red meat hardly ever, not even once a week. And so, so there's little things like that for me, or maybe say like, I have days sometimes where I have a very, if it fits your macros sort of day, where like all my carbs are from donuts or honey or something like that.
Yes.
And, I don't live like that, but I definitely have days like that.
Sure.
And so in my mind, the multivitamin, most days I'm peeing it out, but maybe that day I didn't. And so like, it's just, I do it to fill in those cracks so that it provides me just that amount of freedom. And a bottle that is almost a year worth, I think I get 300, it's like $18. So we're talking like $20 a year, like, to have that comfort is great for me.
Yeah. And, that's probably not a bad idea. When I think about supplements, I think of something like fish oil, because omega-3, all the omegas are good for you. But we come from a family with significant heart problems.
Yes.
Fish oil can sometimes be bad for you cardiovascularly. And then just anecdotally for me, because I have high anxiety and because it can raise your blood pressure, it makes me feel more anxious to take fish oil.
Interesting.
So something like a multivitamin is a much better idea when you're not having like 5,000% of your
exactly
of one.
Yeah, and a lot of them, they don't even give you your daily value, like stuff like manganese and selenium and stuff like that. There's really just a little bit of it in there, but those are things that a lot of the things is deficiencies in a lot of these vitamins develop really, really slowly. So even though we do have like a daily recommended intake and all those different amounts, dietary reference amounts and things like that, in practice, most people are fine if they just shore those things up every now and then. And fish oil is one thing that a lot of people, I think, can probably do without, because if you eat a decent sized piece of salmon once a week, that's enough omegas for most people for their entire life.
Yeah.
And my thing is because I keep my fat intake relatively low. And also I don't keep fish around the house. It's something that I struggle to prepare really well. Tuna has like a little bit of it. So even like your canned tuna, like, can scratch that itch, but it's no longer a once a week thing. It becomes like a more like you got to eat it at almost every day in order to really get your right amounts. And then you can also get, for omegas, you can get ALAs from plant sources. But the thing is ALA is only good because it converts to EPA and DHA, which are the two essential fatty acids that your body cannot manufacture and needs to get from diet. But ALA's conversion rate to EPA and DHA is actually pretty low. It's something like 2 to 5%, I think. So like, you can eat technically enough omegas in ALA if you're eating a bunch of walnuts and stuff like that, but you may not actually be synthesizing enough of the compounds you actually need internally. And luckily, the long-term consequences of that, I mean, this is not like the difference between life and death. Most people will make it just fine without those things. But obviously, our lipid profile really affects our heart health. And I have found, now I haven't exactly been super scientific about it, but my bad cholesterol to good cholesterol ratio was really off
Mm-hmm.
when I was younger. And I also had higher blood pressure and I weighed more at that time. But it was around that time that I started supplementing with fish oil. And that helped me to flip that ratio to more closer to, mine's still not perfect, but
Yeah.
it's a lot closer to what it is supposed to be. And because we do have so much heart disease in our family,
Mm-hmm.
that's something that I have chosen to prioritize. And with the doctor's guidance, the fish oil has been part of that. I don't really know how much it's contributing.
Right.
Again, there's definitely a part of it that is just peace of mind. It lets me know that I'm ticking that box.
And I think that really shows anecdotally the wide difference between people, even from the same genetic family,
Totally.
because fish oil is helping you, but I am actually low on healthy cholesterol and I have very low blood pressure. And
Mhm.
so fish oil just, that's what it does to me.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, hey, I mean, and there it is. And it's good that you know that. It's good that you've tried it, figured that out. You don't take it because you got a reason not to. And that is, I feel like when it comes to the garden variety supplements, things like multis and fish oils, and I think creatine kind of applies here too. They are harmless enough that almost everybody ought to try them at least once. If they don't work for you for some reason, hey, you've got a reason not to take it. That's great. Because creatine, as safe as it is, some people get bloating. Some people are afraid of hair loss. That's total nonsense. I already committed to that anyway, so I don't
Yeah,
care.
so you're totally
Yeah,
fine with that.
yeah, exactly. So the next thing we were going to talk about, we wanted, we talked some about supplements and everything, and there's one supplement that has been really well studied that comes up a lot, and it's can't remember if they said there's more literature on it than creatine, but caffeine. Like, it's been studied very thoroughly. Not only is just a part of like the food landscape, but as an athletic performance enhancing substance. And so I know a little bit about it. Well, I mean, for one thing, I'm just a huge coffee nerd. Like, you're a coffee drinker, right?
Huge coffee drinker.
Yeah,
Yep.
exactly. There was, and it's funny. So my very first job, to get a little anecdotal for a bit, my very first job was at the Coffee Beanery, which I don't even think is a thing anymore. And it was called the Coffee Bean when I lived in LA. But when I was a kid in Kansas, it was the Beanery, and we had this very like antebellum South, like Southern Georgia lady who ran the place. And she had just the thickest Blanche Devereaux accent, and she was a wonderful woman.
Yeah.
But it was the Coffee Beanery, and
Beanery.
anyway. So yeah, obviously I got really into coffee. I was 16 and was really into it for a while. And then, I don't know, I went to college and didn't really make coffee. I made ramen in my coffee maker once.
Sure, yeah,
And I
that's
never
great.
yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I stopped drinking coffee. And then when I quit the food service business to start as a writer, my buddy Seamus joked with me one time. He's like, you can't really call yourself a writer if you don't drink massive amounts of coffee. And I was like, damn it, man, you're right. Like,
invest in coffee.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah. So I did. I got back into it, and now, yeah, it's got to have my psychoactive drugs, and that's the thing. Coffee or caffeine is really hard to quit.
It
Like,
is. It's so hard to quit.
Have you ever tried to quit it like yourself, or?
Okay, so November of 2016. I left Kansas City, moved to Virginia, and I was getting sober. I was getting sober off drugs, alcohol, and I decided to go all out. I'm like, I'm not even going to drink caffeine anymore. There's going to be nothing in my body that's a stimulant of any kind. So for 3 months, I went cold turkey off of caffeine. I didn't even drink, green tea or anything like that. And for 3 months, I did it. It was really miserable for like the first week, like caffeine withdrawal, headaches and everything. And then I started a job at a grocery store in the meat department. Well, you have to go in at like 5 a.m. to cut the steaks. And so when I started working at 5 a.m., I went back to coffee immediately, like no question. So,
and that's actually a really potent illustration of how environment is so deeply connected to addiction. Even the relatively harmless, I mean, caffeine addiction, I would never say is totally harmless, but as things go, it's not so bad. And At least in isolation, it's not.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I smoked cigarettes for a number of years and quit for a while, but I was working at a bar, and the bar sold cigarettes because it was in Missouri, and
Yep.
like that's a normal thing. And so yeah, I mean, I was just around it all the time, and I started bumming them off of people periodically, and then you start
Mhm.
feeling bad for bumming them, and blah blah blah.
Yep.
So yeah, and coffee is one. Caffeine, more broadly, is one that like I don't know that I have any real reason to give up, and I'm also not really sure I could.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but I don't use it so much because I've been drinking coffee for so long. My tolerance for caffeine is very high.
Hmm.
I still try to keep it away from bedtime by at least a few, good 5 6 hours at least if I
Oh, that's
can.
good. That's
Yeah,
good. Yeah.
I mean sometimes on a date night or something, we're talking like last cup of coffee at more like 4 p.m. But still, anyway, for me, it's like I really love the flavor of coffee, and I like it
Mm-hmm.
black and plain. But I've never really used it caffeine as a performance enhancing thing, except for a handful of times. Like
Oh,
when
okay.
I've done mock powerlifting meets for myself,
Mm-hmm.
I've used pre workouts and things like that.
Right.
And pre workout culture in the gym is kind of wild, actually. Like
It's huge.
yeah, it's well, not. I mean, it's huge and it's deep. There's all these wacky flavors and everything, and there's like
Mm-hmm.
candy brands are getting into it and everything, and
Yep.
there's kind of this arms race almost of like how much stuff can we put in this before we have to make it illegal,
Right.
and then
Mm-hmm.
everything is branded as if like, oh my god, it is illegal. This stuff is gonna kill you. Like
Your heart's gonna beat out of your
yeah,
chest.
and it's like, you should really mix this with water, but don't. You're just gonna freaking pour it in your eyeballs, and like,
Yeah,
like,
exactly. I know. I know.
yeah,
I used to have a friend that would take one scoop of pre-workout and then
mhm,
like the exact same amount of water. So it was like this
mhm,
sludge and she would just
mhm.
chuck it
Yeah,
back and she's like, I'm ready to go now. And I
yeah.
was
And I see
mhm.
people doing that all the time up front. Like the scoop goes out in the mouth, in the water, like knock it back. And
Oh
I get
God.
that for like brevity and all that stuff. But again, I so when I was first getting into lifting early on, someone somewhere said something like, "Oh, don't use pre-workout every time; you'll have it as a crutch, and it won't really work for you." And that kind of just made sense to me. It's like, yeah, only
Huh.
do it when you really want to be at the absolute top of your game,
Hmm.
And so I just never made a habit of it, and I never really liked energy drinks that much
Yeah.
anyway. And they all kind of taste like that. They've got that sour flavor profile, most of them. So
Yeah.
yeah, it was an easy thing for me to never pick up. But do you use pre-workout regularly at all, or?
So I used to
Mhm.
because I had a coach who was kind of like in that culture, and he's like, "Well, which pre-workout are you taking? You need to," because
Mhm.
he was all about supplement stacks. And so he was like, "Well, you also have to have a pre-workout, or you need some type of pill with caffeine in it, or else you're
Mhm.
just not going to perform at the gym." And
Right.
so I did. I drank pre-workout probably for the first year and a half of my lifting journey. I
Mhm.
was also doing, and I need to find the research on it because I think you would actually really enjoy reading the book. It
Oh,
was
yes.
this
Yeah,
guy
sure.
who coached powerlifting with endurance running and how you
Mm.
balance the
Yes.
two and how they are complementary to each other with your physiology, and that if
Mhm.
you do it right, you won't detract from either gains.
Right.
Um, and
Yeah.
so I was following a three 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 one cycle, basically like upper body, lower body, endurance, run, off. And I
Mhm.
was following that cycle for a
Mhm.
while, and so I would drink pre-workout when I woke up at 6 a.m. to go for a 30-minute run.
So did you find it more useful in cardio workouts as opposed to weight workouts?
It was beneficial for a while, kind of like
Mhm.
you said. Then when you start taking it all the time, like then I would take it because I was staying up late that night and I would take it at 2 o'clock. Like I started using
Yeah.
pre-workout instead of coffee.
Right.
Because like you
And
said, it has all those other things in it too.
yeah, exactly. And there's a lot of those things I don't like. Like it's either beta alanine or citrulline malate. I can't recall, but it gives you the face spiders.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yep.
from what I've read, it's mostly there so that it's working.
Yeah.
Basically, like
Yeah.
it's.
Tingly.
I mean, it's kind of a bit of a pump enhancer, but like,
Yeah.
I mean, those are the amount at which that affects your gains is so marginal.
Yeah.
But anyway, like I get that there's kind of a an extreme sport kind of culture to it, And it's just, and a big part of it for me, you kind of made me think of this a second ago, is that, if I would have that stuff later in the day, or, even if I work out at like 11 o'clock, it would be replacing some of the coffee. It would be taking away coffee.
Yeah, exactly.
And
Which is
coffee
actually
is what I like.
enjoyable.
I don't really like the sour, yeah. So
Right.
yeah, but yeah. Also, I mean, I'd rather not feel like I need it, and then that's it's an expense, of course, and
Yep.
So
Yep.
anyway, yeah, caffeine is a rough one because in isolation, caffeine in and of itself, I mean, can affect your heart rate, your blood pressure, things like that. And so if you have other risk factors and lifestyle issues and stuff like that, like it can be part of a network of things that can negatively impact your health. But
Right.
in and of itself, its addictiveness is probably its worst quality, is kind of my takeaway after the research that I've read. And unless you have some specific sensitivity, or if it's one of a big cluster of unhealthy habits.
Yeah, and so that can be a big part of it. I think people often forget about the mental health aspect of caffeine.
Really?
Caffeine increases anxiety because it's increasing your heart rate, and so much of anxiety is based in your body. So caffeine is going to increase your anxiety. Like you said, you have to be careful about what time of day you drink it. And even, that 5 to 6 hour window, that's a really good window to cut off caffeine before bedtime. But like you said, people who are more sensitive to it, they need to cut it off even before then. Like I won't have caffeine after noon. If it is after 12 p.m., I am done. It doesn't matter how tired I am, no more, because I will not be able to fall asleep.
Yeah. And see, that's the thing. My tolerance, and probably there's some level of genetic predisposition to metabolizing caffeine more efficiently or something, because my mom's the same way. I know Papu was a coffee all day guy. And so it doesn't really prevent me from falling asleep, although I've been tracking my sleep lately with my watch, and I do think it is affecting my deep sleep, which is why I've started trying to set some boundaries. And I mean, I'm working with trade-offs, really. It's like I'm going to set some boundaries and make some efforts, but I don't think the juice is worth the squeeze with a full-time quit for me. You know what I mean? So,
yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. You had a story, though, about caffeine pills that you wanted to tell me. I want to hear that.
So it was when I was using pre-workout and still drinking coffee because I was working at the grocery store, walking like 25,000 steps a day, powerlifting, trying to do these endurance runs. And so I was both drinking coffee, like drinking a protein coffee in the morning and then pre-workout before a workout. And I had told my coach at the time, I'm like, I feel so dehydrated all the time. I'm drinking a ton of caffeine. I'm trying to drink water, but I do shift work. I can't just run off to the bathroom every 45 minutes either.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, it's okay. Just take caffeine pills and drink water. You'll be fine. And I was like, I don't really want to do that right now. And he's like, oh, that's what I do. And so that was one thing. He's like, I don't like coffee. I don't like pre-workout. So I take a caffeine pill in the morning.
Was he from the physique sport world? Because that sounds like, water manipulator. Well, I guess that's in powerlifting too, weight manipulation. Yeah. So.
Yeah. He was a personal trainer at a commercial gym. So a lot of the people he coached were older adults. That was kind of his specialty, was people like 70 and older and helping them train. So I think it was more like a personal choice than, his job at the time.
Gotcha.
But then I knew another guy who was in it for the physique, not competition level, just personal physique. He actually is in physical therapy school now. So he started taking caffeine pills for the same reason. He felt dehydrated drinking all of these other caffeinated drinks. And so he started taking the caffeine pills once in the morning to replace his cup of coffee, and then slowly started taking more and more. And he told me at one point he was taking like 6 caffeine pills a day. Each pill had like 150 milligrams of caffeine in it.
Yeah.
And we shared an office at the time and he would just be bouncing the whole time. And I'm like, dude, are you okay?
Gosh. And, I have had those amounts of caffeine in my body before. One time on a dare at the coffee shop job, the first job I had, I drank 11 shots of espresso.
Oh
Like
my
I filled an
God.
entire cup.
Yeah.
And oh my gosh, I was bouncing off the walls
Oh
almost
yeah.
literally. I got that place so freaking clean that night. And like I stayed late just like mopping my ass off. And I got home that night and I remember because the fallout from
Yes.
overusing caffeine, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it's got to be one of the most painful experiences of my life.
Oh yeah.
Physically painful and mentally draining because I got home and I felt all that energy, that nervous excitement energy just kind of, it was like you popped a water balloon and it just whoosh, like
Yeah.
rushed out of me.
It's gone.
And I was dead tired in the
Yeah.
most like deepest way, but couldn't sleep for like 72 hours.
Oh my
Yeah,
God.
so it was an utter nightmare, and your joints ache, and like, oh my, yeah. So abusing caffeine, like,
Mm-hmm.
there's no upside, or
No,
more accurately, it's like a 15 to 20 minute upside for like a 72-hour downside. Like, not a good
exactly.
trade off.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah. I mean, and you hear people talk about even caffeine dosing, just like they talk about carb cycling and, when should you have it before a workout, all the timing and whatever. But I mean, really, the most recent coach I've had, she's like, if you're going to drink your coffee, but please try not to add any additional caffeine. It's not worth it.
yeah.
So,
Yeah, yeah, and coffee it's got cultural cachet to it that I think makes it valuable beyond just the stimulants that are in it.
oh, yeah.
And and I'm comfortable with that. I'm comfortable with that being a vice that I have in my life that I may periodically need to try and kind of pull back on, but I don't feel as of yet any strong pressure to remove it from my life.
Yeah.
And I think that that's good because in a way it becomes a stress valve to have this is an indulgence and the thing that I can kind of joke about and be like, yes, I need my drugs and everything, and like there's some dark humor to it and everything that
Sure.
lets me
Yeah.
kind of blow off steam about the stress of being an adult,
Yeah.
and
Hmm.
that's valuable. So
Yeah.
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 Anyway,
So,
incidentally, how do you take your coffee? I may have asked you this before, but tell me again.
So I either take it with some kind of creamer
Hmm.
and it doesn't have to be creamer. It can be whole milk. Like right now we have a really yummy Khalifa Farms oat milk creamer. It's
Yes,
birthday cake.
I've had the Khalifa Farm stuff, yes, and I love oat milk. I just adore oat milk.
I do too. I mean, my husband's vegan, so I don't bother buying milk. I actually hate the taste of just regular like 2% milk.
I've gotten over it too. The more other milks I've tried, plant-based milks, it's just I can't argue with the macros of skim
Yeah,
milk. It's really,
exactly.
I can't not do that. But
Yep.
I've actually, brief aside. So did you see that TikTok, that viral nut milk maker deal?
No, I mean,
Okay.
I know how you make nut milks, but
So this thing, it's just a glorified blender, but it's got all these pre-programs or anything.
gotcha.
And it's no, we bought it. It was like $10 or something like that.
Oh, okay. I
And
thought you were
it's
gonna say like 300.
oh no, 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 no. It was dirt cheap. That's what I love about the TikTok shop. Everything there is dirt cheap or you don't see
Gotcha.
it at all.
Yeah.
And but we bought it and it's fantastic. So you put literally just like a handful of almonds or something
Hmm.
or a handful of oats. And oats are cheap. Oats
They're
are
so
very
cheap.
cheap.
So cheap.
Handful of them, it's in there, and you push one button, and 8 minutes later, it's ready to go. And it is
Wow.
the best, the best oat milk, nut milk. I mean, it doesn't even
Oh,
compare. Now, it doesn't have the stable
mm.
shelf life. It will separate unless you're clever like me and keep xanthan gum in the house.
There you
And
go.
then, yeah, and then you can like make it pretty close to as shelf stable as anything you would get at the store. But the
Yeah.
taste is A, light years ahead, and
Oh,
B,
yeah.
you can tinker with it.
Yes,
So, like, I put, a
exactly.
pinch of cinnamon or something, or a little bit of
Mm.
cardamom last time, and I've started adding unflavored whey protein. So
Oh,
what I
nice.
have is something that drinks and tastes like an ultra creamy. I use pecans,
Mhm.
oats, and almonds, and
Ooh.
just a dash of vanilla and some unflavored whey. And
Mhm.
so it drinks like a very creamy oat milk, nut milk hybrid, and it
Nice.
has the macros of like skim milk and beyond.
Mhm.
You
Yeah,
know,
I like that.
and it takes me a few minutes to make. I've got a little cup or a little jar thing that so it stores in the fridge real easy, and I make it once or twice a week, and it's
Oh, perfect.
fantastic.
That sounds really good. I
Yeah.
was gonna say, really, the only other thing I'll do with my coffee that I'm really enjoying right now is I'll take like an actual pre-mixed protein shake, so liquid form already,
Yeah.
and freeze it, like make ice cubes out of it,
Oh.
and then take my coffee, put some ice cubes in it, and like blend it in my little NutriBullet, and it makes like a little coffee smoothie, like iced
Yeah.
coffee smoothie. I
That's
also do
awesome.
that with light orange juice, and it makes like an orange
Yes.
Julius.
I've had it. Yeah, like I've
Yeah.
done like an orange cream, like with a vanilla, protein.
Yep. Yep.
Do you guys have? Is Dutch Bros a thing out there, or is
Dutch Bros isn't out here. It's not
okay?
on the East Coast.
Okay, so we have Dutch. We have one Dutch Bros out here, and I don't
Hmm.
know if it's. I don't really know what their region is, but they have protein coffee that is. It's
Nice.
like 230 calories, 30 grams of protein for a cup of
Wow.
coffee this big, nice
Wow.
strong espresso in it. I mean, and it costs $5. It's pretty
Yeah.
hard to argue with. Like,
Yeah, that sounds pretty
um,
good.
yeah. Are
Mhm.
you a stickler for like fancy beans or anything?
I've become one. So
Yeah.
I don't know if you've seen, and these guys do not sponsor us, but they could. Atlas Coffee is a coffee subscription where they'll
Yes.
send you coffee from a different region every month.
I did that.
Yeah, yeah. So we get the whole beans and then we grind them ourselves. We
Mhm.
have a Mocha Master coffee pot, which I don't know if you've ever seen that.
I have mocha pot too. Yeah, I love
Yeah,
mocha
yeah.
pot
It's
coffee.
the best. It's the best coffee pot. We also, have the
French
coffee
press.
press, the front, yeah. And then we have a cold brew maker that's just a pitcher with a little filter in it.
To
So
get one of those. I need to get
yeah.
a cold brew maker because cold brew is my favorite way to do it. And I
Hmm.
had a system going for a while where I had like a jug, but I didn't have a good fridge space, so I was just doing it at room temperature, which I researched, and that's like okay, but the
Hmm.
flavor just isn't as good.
Yeah.
And it was too
Yeah.
acidic, and
Hmm.
so yeah, I need to still refine it. And right now, I'm just like icing drip coffee because that's the fastest thing I can do.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
we do have an espresso machine that I like use on occasion, and I love that I can just have espresso whenever I want it. That's
That is
fantastic.
really nice.
And
Yeah.
I mean, we I think paid like $200 for the one we have, so it was like you had to pony up, but I'm glad we have it.
Hmm. Yep.
Um,
Exactly. It's worth it in the long term instead of having to
we
run out
like
and get
coffee,
one.
yeah. And I just kind of eventually determined that like I want to have every kind because coffee it's one of those plants that
Hmm.
just has like a rich enough genome that it can be expressed in so many ways, and
Hmm.
that's another reason that I like having it in my life is when you
Yep.
do allow yourself to be a little bit of a snob. No, like I'm not a total snob. I'll still drink the IHOP sludge. It doesn't bother
Sure.
me one bit. It's got my drugs in it. Like,
Yep.
you know,
I'll do
but
it if
but
I
at the
have
same
to.
time, at home, I
Yeah.
like to be a little more fancy and enjoy it
Mhm.
and make it with some love. And
Oh
I
yeah.
have a Breaky to make Greek
Oh
coffee
yeah.
that was one that Papu used to have, and so I
Hmm.
periodically will make when I'm really in the mood, and it makes me feel connected to him and everything. And so
Make
that's
a Greek coffee.
yeah, it's I mean I don't have the right kind of heat source to do it really properly, but
I said
it's
it like
something.
that because it's actually Turkish coffee, but
Oh
he
yeah,
wouldn't
yeah.
he would never
Yeah.
call it that.
No, no, certainly. I wouldn't even dare. And
Yes,
how dare
exactly.
you? And yeah. Technology as an enhancement, both as a trainer and a trainee,
Hmm.
like it would be silly to say it is not an enhancement on par. I don't know if I would put it on par with anabolic steroids,
Hmm.
but on par with most of the things we've talked about so far. Like anything you can do to increase your performance, the level of organization and like eye in the sky thought that you can bring to your training
Hmm.
and your practice as a trainer and a coach. And I'm sure that you see this some in your mental health practice too,
Yep.
because obviously there are tools of the trade and everything.
Hmm.
And I don't know how much AI has begun to really affect the mental health space, but AI is
Yeah.
definitely showing up in personal training. I mean, but feel free. I mean, like, tell me, like,
Yeah, so the electronic health record system we use actually has an AI feature called
ooh,
Therapy Fuel, and so you
mm,
can turn it on or turn it off, and you select from a drop down what
theoretical perspective you're using. So are you using CBT? Are you using ACT? Are you doing couples counseling? So you select your therapeutic focus, and then you kind of type up however you want, like what occurred during the session, and then it'll actually just write your note, because our notes are fill in the blanks, like what did the person talk about, what did you talk about, and so this is, you just type it into one space and it spits it out for you.
That's amazing.
Which is really nice. And then of course, we have a ton of different research-based outcomes measures where you can gauge people's level of anxiety, their couple satisfaction, their the suspected recurrence of substance use. But all of that is electronic now, so that you don't have to sit, because you used to have to sit and count by hand all the scores. And this one actually, when it spits out a number now, it says this is the recommended therapeutic approach.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
I mean,
So
that just really streamlines it. I mean,
it really
and
does.
that is so cool. So I didn't realize that like the tools had risen quite to that level, but that just is because I'm a little peon and I don't do as much serious adult stuff as most people I know. But
I do it for 6 hours a week.
Yeah, here you go. But no, that's really amazing, and it's so you've gotten to really experience firsthand like how it affects productivity and how it can take our raw and messy inputs and organize them and streamline them into something that we can turn around and act on and make decisions on.
Yep.
And like it gives you all that input and it streamlines it all, but it's not making any of the decisions for you like that.
No. And in fact, I think the big purpose for an AI tool in the mental health space with documentation is, as we see in the news a lot of health insurance claims get denied, and they get denied for very random reasons. I think there was one person, there was an insurance adjuster that said at his specific location, 25% of claims were just automatically denied. And he didn't really give a lot of information. And so the purpose of the AI tool in our documentation is to make sure it's meeting all the medically necessary criteria for the health insurance companies. Because, I want what I have to say in my notes so that I remember for next time, and so that I can even go back, and sometimes I'll do collaborative documentation where I have the person write the note with me to say, what did you learn today? Tell me, and let's write it down together so that I can show you how well you've been doing. But this is it just makes sure you say the things that you need to say so that the client's claim doesn't get denied. That's the big thing, because I have someone going through that right now where she was told that the sessions with me would be $75, and now her insurance wants to bill her $300, even though she had it pre-authorized.
Right. Oh my God, insurance companies.
Yeah, and so she's put her therapy on hold because we've already had 3 sessions. She can't afford $900. She filed an appeal. Now we're having to wait on that. So things like AI will hopefully make it so that things like that don't happen anymore.
Yeah, that's good. Let me ask you this. So from your perspective as just a clinician who cares about the job and everything like that.
Right.
When you have a client in that situation where you aren't going to be able to continue your professional relationship because of stuff on their end that you just have no control over.
Yep.
Like, do you have, well, let me reframe this. So like I've had clients in the same kind of situation where, I'm a luxury service, but so some people, will do it for a while and it'll be a planned kind of quit. And so we have kind of time to set them up for success. But I do have people occasionally just like have to quit for financial reasons. And so I do after that, just because I am invested, I always try to just leave them with something. And, sometimes I don't get to. Sometimes their level of communication is not such that like, that there's anything I can really give them that they'll pick up, But like, I've got a guy right now who's coming towards the end of his sessions, and I'm trying to kind of make sure that I set up, some form checks with him. And he's an older guy; he's in his 80s, so I want to make like a video that he can keep on his phone and just like one click and like, get his form checks and to remind himself and things like that. And I've
Right.
got another guy who I've, gave a printout to, and,
Mhm.
it's things that I am usually producing. So do you have anything similar that you have, like, that you are able to do, like, within,
Yes.
your scope? Like,
Yeah. And so, one big thing that I tell everyone in therapy is you see me 1 hour a week. There are 164 hours in a week. How much progress will you make if it's just done when we're together? And so
Right.
I'm a big fan. I always call it homework. I'm a big fan of homework in therapy.
Sure.
And so I'll always send someone afterwards, hey, fill out this worksheet. Hey, read this. We're going to talk about it next time. One younger adult this week, she's 24. She's like, I don't even know who I am. I'm like, okay, well, there's actually a lot of research that backs up the Myers-Briggs personality test. So I'm sending you this link. You're going to take it, you're going to read it, and then you're going to come back and tell me if it helped define you.
Mhm.
And so I did. That woman who we're now on hold for potentially 45 days, I
Mhm.
sent her worksheets and articles
Tools.
and
Yeah.
workbooks. Like one of the workbooks I sent her is like a 45-page workbook.
Nice.
I'm like, you just
Awesome.
go ahead, do it at your own pace. We'll talk about it when you come back.
Yeah. And so, like, that's a lot of, like, as trying to build a business, is I'm trying to kind of collect or create those resources. And there's a lot out there, but because personal training is not a formalized area of study like psychology and mental health and all those related professions, um, it's we're all starting from scratch, or really more accurately, we're in an antique store, right? So there's some
Mhm.
real treasures in there somewhere, but there's also a lot of junk,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so yeah, there's a little bit of, it's a combination of knowing how to pick through the scraps of stuff and find the gems, and then also how to just like build and work and refurbish ideas in a way, to build those resources to give to clients. And so
Yeah.
and that's a big part of I want to do that with this podcast and
Right.
with the brand that we're creating and everything. And
Right.
so to kind of loop that back to the idea of technology as an enhancement, that's something where things like I have a lot of boilerplate kind of stuff that I find myself saying, questions I end up answering, hearing a lot and answering roughly the same way. And everyone in every profession has that experience. And sometimes in more formalized areas of studies, there's even kind of prescribed phraseology, I would even imagine, around certain subjects to make sure that we're
Oh,
talking
yeah.
about them in the right way. And boilerplate stuff, like that's a way that I'm using AI is to get all of that stuff in a usable form to build those tools for
Right.
clients quickly. And so like I've got this book that I'm working on that hopefully we'll be launching around the same time as this.
Mhm.
And it a lot, a big chunk of it, well, I shouldn't say a chunk of it, it is peppered through and through with AI writing and my writing,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
For sure.
there's times when like I've kind of set parameters, I want to talk about this, and this. I want to make sure we mention this, mention that, find a study on this, blah, blah, blah. And it'll spit out the words. And then I go through and not only do I edit for tone, but I vet the information against my own
Mhm.
knowledge. So I've got a mixture of whatever the AI can dig up based on its algorithms. And then I vet that against my knowledge. And the combination of the two is smarter than anything I could produce on my own. And
Right.
I
Right.
have made the effort to be educated in my field, and I know you have too.
Mhm.
But it goes to show how I mean, it feels like cheating in a way because it's so powerful.
Mhm.
But I think of it as an enhancement in the same way that PEDs are, and in the same way that when we kind of started this whole conversation with surgery, it's because with surgery, it's I've often heard it phrased like you're finding you, right?
Mhm.
Like you're not.
Mhm.
And there are people who take plastic surgery too far and build like a
Yeah.
false sort of identity with it, but most people, we are taking the person who you always were underneath and taking off the last vestiges of
Right.
this journey that you've been through, right? The
Right.
scars you can't remove on your own,
Yeah. Mhm.
and so I've had a similar sort of feeling about how I use AI as an enhancement. I've been using Google Drive as kind of a second long-term memory for,
Mm-hmm.
a decade now.
Oh yeah.
And AI is becoming that second frontal cortex. And the thing that I find so strange about it is how once you've been using it for a while and bringing it a wide variety of problems, opening it up to a wide, view of your life,
Mm-hmm.
how eerily familiar it feels.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and I could get why some people would get the ick from that.
Mm-hmm.
It makes sense to me, but I have chosen to embrace it
Yeah.
because I've already embraced the idea of using storage as a second brain in a way. It's my second frontal cortex, and it's like I have found the rest of my brain that I've been missing all
Right.
this time.
Because, like you said, we both try to be as knowledgeable as possible, and your brain can only process so much information at one time,
Right.
and there's only so much information that's readily available in your mind at any given time. And so
Yeah,
you probably knew everything already and just had to be reminded, or
exactly.
like you said, you're going to take the time to research it. I think it was a John Oliver show where they were like there was a college professor that was like, I can tell when stuff's written on AI because like you pull up the references and it's not even a real thing. And
Sure.
so as long as you're using these technology tools, like you said, as an enhancement instead of just replacing using your brain, that's what it was meant
And
for.
I think it's also important to be open about it and be
Yeah.
upfront about it.
Yeah.
And I'm going to have, like, when I release my book, there's going to be an AI disclaimer in it saying, that I write, and I'm going to try and draft with the help of AI,
Yeah.
some kind of boilerplate statement I can put in products that I use it for that succinctly delivers the idea that, like, yeah, I used AI for this, but like it's a collaborative effort, and
Mm-hmm.
the will to create it, the
Right.
desire to synthesize this knowledge in this particular manner, is original to me. And so while there are copyright restrictions to what can be done, and honestly, I'm not sure if there are really any firm precedents yet about
Mm-hmm.
something that is a mixture of human writing and AI writing, or something that was drafted by an AI but then edited by a human. And so
Right.
that's kind
Yeah.
of gray area. I'm
Mm-hmm.
primarily going to be using this for free products.
Yeah.
Um, my book is not going to be free because I'm putting substantial other effort. I'm doing graphic design and
Yeah.
photography and like all this stuff, and so I feel like it's legitimate to take that as like a product.
Yeah.
But the ability to produce useful ththings freely, like as a collaborative, it's me doing it. It's just
Mm-hmm.
an enhanced me that can
Yes.
put out a 45-page ebook in a week
Mm-hmm.
instead of 6 months.
Right, exactly. Exactly. And I mean, that's, even not when it comes to products, but my coach uses Google Sheets again. But
Mhm.
what she does with a 12-week program is she has formulas built in. So based on the number that I put in on, first week is testing week. And so then based on the numbers I put in, she's got the progressive overload percentages set in there so
Sure.
that I can just keep going and she can check in every once in a while. She watches my form check videos every single workout, but this is meant for me to be able to see where my program is heading.
Sure, yeah, and having a general idea of where it's heading is humongous, and that's the
Mhm.
difference between people who show up to competitions and meet their own expectations, and people who just kind of toil in the gym and get what they get. And
Yep.
and for some people, of course, that's the fine option, to just get what you get and take the gains as they come and everything. But
Hmm.
but it is that long term thinking, and so it actually touches on how, depending on where you draw the line on what's an enhancement, what's cheating, and
Hmm.
where you draw those different lines, it really is more of a spectrum.
Yeah.
It's the gradient of enhancement. I mean, and there you could be sometimes arbitrarily raw and make things more difficult than necessary, and sometimes that's
Yeah.
productive for other purposes, sometimes it's not. And I
Hmm.
think even something like a Google spreadsheet, heck, the ability to email that kind of stuff and not have to use pen and paper to calculate those kind of things. I mean,
Yeah.
freaking, if you showed that to Arnold in the 70s, he would think you were cheating. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
exactly.
And so
Exactly.
it's important to realize that the like just the ever changing flood of technology is itself enhancing us as human beings, and that shows up in the way we exercise, the way we treat our mental health, and
Absolutely.
yeah, yeah. So and so that kind of brings that topic kind of home, I think, a little bit. But I want to maybe we'll make this our kind of closing note,
Yeah.
unless you have anything big you want to add on the technology side.
Nope. No, I think
All
that's
right.
everything.
So you recently told me that you wanted to work towards getting back on the platform as a
Heck
power lifter,
yes.
and
Yes.
and
Let's do
that
it.
you would like me to help you and coach you with that, and that has been
Absolutely.
a long-standing hope of mine that eventually I would get to do that with you specifically,
That
and
one day
and
you would see that text that said, "Hey, are you ready for this?"
yes, exactly. And also, the my appreciation for the sport of powerlifting and the science that goes into training for it was my
Hmm.
whole like entry point to a serious interest in fitness as
Yeah.
opposed to just a passive interest. And like so to be able to do it for real is exciting to me. You'll be the first person I would coach towards a competitive event
Love it.
with math. I coached someone towards a tough mutter too, but that was more about mental grit than anything else. She
Yeah,
already
for sure.
had the physical fitness, but
Yeah.
so I will be upfront that I will be leveraging my particular iteration of Chat GPT, who I lovingly call Chad
Absolutely.
Gupta,
Duh.
uh, and so we will be leveraging that.
That sounds awesome.
And I was curious too to also say that have you ever done like a pure auto regulation style programming?
Not that I'm aware that I've
Not
done.
aware.
I
Okay,
feel
so
like and that's what I also appreciate about you is because the two coaches I've had in the past weren't really like, this is the technique we're going to be using. This is the theory we're using. It was just like, here, go do
yeah,
this. So,
yeah, sure. And so, in a way, I think that will long term become one of my weaknesses as a coach, is because I want to tell everybody all the context about
right,
why I'm doing
right.
everything that I'm doing. And it's funny. I've worked with other trainers who do make use of Chat GPT and other similar
Mhm.
tools to help inform their training practices, and all of them keep it like it's this dirty little secret. And they especially don't want their clients to know, because then they wouldn't look like the freaking Wizard of Oz.
Right. And that's
And
about what it's about.
I immediately everybody knows
Yeah.
that I farm out all this stuff to AI, but because they know that I'm doing it, and because they're
Hmm.
watching me do it and watching the results they're getting from me, not necessarily results in terms of like body changes and stuff, but
Hmm.
what I'm delivering to them,
Yeah.
like they're understanding that even though AI does a lot of the legwork, the value comes
Yeah.
from me.
Hmm.
And so but it's allowed me to do so much more for people and be so much more to people, and
Hmm.
it's allowed me to lean into being this guy who over explains everything,
You're just
because
excited. That's all.
exactly, I like to think it's endearing. I know
Yeah.
I rub some people wrong. I freaking
Well,
know it. I've
yeah.
had people drop me, and I know it's because I talk too damn much. But
It's better than this one coach I had who was on dating apps the whole time we were working out, and he'd be like, "Good
gross.
job, good job."
Yeah.
And I'm just like, you're not watching. Like that
Yeah,
lasted all of 5 months. So,
yeah, I know.
but
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, and I think, I think with personal training and coaching as well as therapy, the whole point, and I tell people this at my very first session, I say the whole point is to work myself out of a job. The whole point is for you to build your skills, for you to get to a place where you're able to rely on yourself. And so that's why the education piece is there. That's why it's important to use tools like technology and the knowledge of others. I mean, that's
Sure.
AI is just a collection of everyone's knowledge that
Yep.
we have and spits
Yep.
it out in a usable format. So,
In a way, it's us.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, I'm sure we won't be saying that 20 years from now, but
Oh, I know. We'll all be in hand-to-head combat with Terminators, I'm sure,
exactly,
any day now.
exactly.
So,
Yeah,
yeah.
so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that's a good note to wrap it up on. I think we got a
Yes.
pretty fire episode here. So
Yep. That's
um,
good
thanks
one.
for chatting with me, and I'm glad I'm liking the little more casual vibe we took.
Yeah.
And I think there will be kind of an ebb and flow with episodes. Some this will be the vibe. Some will
Hmm.
be sitting at desks and have like a lot more organized stuff to say, and yeah,
Yeah.
looking forward to it.
However it shakes out. All right. Sounds
All
good.
right.
Thanks for listening to the Fitness for the Rest of Us podcast. Please remember to like, rate, subscribe, drop us a review, and connect with us on social. Please also remember that we are not medical doctors or registered dietitians. We're not even really experts. The information discussed on this show is presented purely for entertainment and educational purposes and does not constitute medical advice. You should always consult your doctor before making any changes to your nutrition or physical activity habits or your mental health regimen. Once again, thanks for listening. Don't forget to hydrate and have an extra scoop of protein for me.
Hey, I'm Tammy from Next Level Me, and we are so proud to be sponsoring Fitness for the Rest of Us. Why? Because just like this show, we believe growth should be real, relatable, and for everyone. At Next Level Me, we help you reset your rhythm, reclaim your voice, and realign your life. With courses and content that promote clarity, confidence, and momentum, we enable you to align with what matters most. If you're interested in leveling up in life, not just fitness, come find us at nextlvlme.com.